All right, thank you everybody for joining me today for my talk here in the Learning Zone. Thank you AWS for the opportunity to present. My name is Ryan Kido. I'm the CTO for Ateliere. If you're not familiar with us, we are a media technology company focusing on the media supply chain, and that's where I'll focus on our talk today. Like everybody else, you might be sort of overwhelmed by the number of times you see AI on the screen. Nonetheless, I'm going to be giving my talk about that today. We definitely think it's a transformational technology. I've been in the digital media supply chain and automation field for going on almost 2 decades now. And sort of when we first started to do automation and digitization, that was sort of a step function in efficiency. And we truly believe that Gen AI will be that next step function in efficiency if we can harness it correctly. So I want to go through a bit of what we've been doing prototyping-wise and also share a bit about the vision that we have. But as we get started, just to kind of ground ourselves in the business problem of what the media supply chain is, if you're not that familiar, basically, media supply chains are highly fragmented. Getting content from the content producers out to the distributors, and then finally out to who's going to do the streaming and play out is a very complicated process, especially as we've globalized and we have many different sort of versions, languages, artwork, metadata, all these things need to be harnessed and brought together. It's a very complicated problem to put that together and make sure the right things are getting to the endpoint at the right time. So this complexity can lead to a lot of slowness in your process, a lot of lag. You know, again, you sort of are loading things up, it's not getting to where you want, a lot of friction at the end of the process. So we've designed our Connect platform, which is a fully cloud native based supply chain system that allows you to manage the inventory and deliver your assets to try to address the supply chain issue. So really it's about a modern cloud native solution that helps manage your media inventory, not just manage files, but how do the files work together, what are the languages that work together, what's the right artwork, so when you need to package it up and distribute it, you can save time, save money, and ultimately efficiently deliver globally. Right, so that's what we're doing, and so we've done that, so we're good. Thank you for my talk. No, I'm kidding. It's unfortunately not that easy, right? So yeah, we can automate it now that you've got your assets into the supply chain, but actually the problem is much bigger. It's actually much more complex. And so the reality is, you know, you're sort of on the left side of this problem for a lot of our customers when they get started. And there's this huge mountain to climb to get to that automation and delivery pot of gold. And the problem is that to kind of cross that chasm, you need to get your inventory organized. So doing this for a long time from an automation perspective, if you don't have your metadata right, if you don't know what your assets are, if you don't know if they're conforming or not, that sort of heavy lift up front is a real barrier to entry. It's a real friction point to taking advantage of automation that needs to leverage sort of proper metadata and good asset organization. Right? So how are we going to climb that mountain if you want to take advantage of the benefits? And a real problem is this concept of workability. If you're familiar with general supply chains, certainly you can apply this to media. What files do I have, and when can I actually package that up and send that out together? So there's certain things I know that I have, there's certain things I'm not really aware of, and it's kind of a little caveman right now, right? Like, what do I need to know? I might pick up the phone and call somebody. I'm searching around a file system. Maybe I've got things organized in a MAM. I'm searching by name. Do I have those files? It's really inefficient, and basically you get really unhappy salespeople or really unhappy operations people trying to figure out those assets that you have and how do I put them together. So what we're really trying to do in applying Gen AI to some of these problems is really having a really efficient and understanding of your media inventory so you can create the best deals, so you can deliver everywhere. And of course, at the end of the day, we're not out here, well, some of us aren't charities, most of us aren't. We're here to make money and maximize the value of that library, right? That's the goal. And it all starts with organization and leveraging tools to have a good organized inventory. The problem with that, again, is that's really hard. It's a lot of labor, usually, to review and actually go through that process. So how are we going to do that? Like, what's the magic that's going to save us from this problem? Well, a little tongue-in-cheek, right? A little Gen AI to the rescue. It's not a magical solution, but we really think that there's some concepts that are involved with the large language models that allow us to get ahead. AI is not new. A lot of us who have been in this field, AI detection of metadata, Detection of like bars and tones and slates in a piece of content isn't new, but some of the things that large language models can do to discover content and deal with complexities of large data sets is very unique. And we think that can lend itself to this problem. So we needed sort of a North Star to figure out where we're going, but what are we trying to accomplish again, and to anchor what we're going to do for a GenAI strategy in the supply chain. And for us, the end of the day is really how are you maximizing revenue for your investments, right? So from a content owner perspective, or if you're a licensor of content, you spent a lot of money to create those assets and to organize those things. And the barrier right now is how do I make an efficient supply chain? How do I have an efficient library so I can actually deliver that and capture that value? So that's our North Star and where we're headed. To get there, obviously, is a long journey, so we needed some sort of vision and main tenets. And I think what you can see on the floor and at the show, and it's going to continue, is there's a lot of point solutions, the little islands of really interesting solutions. You know, some of the things that I think are really cool is like language dubbing that actually does lip syncing as well. We've seen solutions that can detect compliance across videos. That'll tell you sort of where you're going to be rated in different countries all over the world, and leverage large language models to detect that on the fly. That's really, really cool. But these are sort of point solutions, and we think the value from a platform like Connect is to tie together these best of breed solutions, right? There's experts in these fields who are building these amazing products, but to actually realize the benefit, you need to tie that into a workflow that's going to allow you to efficiently deliver content. And that's what our role is. Getting away from islands of genius and having really this fully integrated pipeline for revenue. We also think that there's new interactive paradigms. So going into user interface and clicking 500 buttons and reading individual pieces of text and hunting for things is not the future. We have some interesting ideas that I'll demo here today about how we think the future of interactions might happen in terms of ordering and interacting with your inventory. And we think this is going to be iterative. I think the nature of our technology, the nature of Gen AI is that it's sort of a gray box. It's non-deterministic. So there's going to be a lot of iteration that has to happen to build and make progress. And sometimes you're going to head down a road, it's going to be very successful. Sometimes you're going to head down a road, it's not going to be successful at all. It's time to walk away. But maybe it's going to mature and you can come back. So we're taking a very highly iterative approach and really trying to take a broad approach on trying a lot of different things and working with our customers. And so again, using best of breed, talked about that a little bit, and then being customer obsessed. What does the market really want? And so pressure testing different prototypes and ideas, some of which I'll show in a second, to kind of move that ball forward and continue to kind of grow on these building blocks. So as we rethink the entire supply chain, it's a large problem. We've kind of broken it down to 4 major pillars in our overall vision. So the first, talked about that a little bit, which is how are we going to properly organize and then ingest into this catalog, right? There's a lot of chaos. You've got files, some of them might be named helpfully, some of them might just be numbers, they came off a tape somewhere, you don't really know what they are. How are you going to organize that? You've got metadata that's come from a whole bunch of different systems, maybe on spreadsheets, Word documents, maybe in a database somewhere. How are you going to make order out of that chaos? Right? So that's sort of step one on how we might use Gen AI. Well, now I've got all my content together. Maybe I'm missing some pieces. Maybe I don't have a language, a sub. Maybe I don't have a dub. Maybe I never created a trailer. How am I going to automatically generate some of those things to fill the holes in my inventory so I can get to workability, right? So I can deliver that content. And then once I've done that, now I want to process, package, deliver that content. You know, how might I interact with different services and really have truly intelligent automation? Starting from the specs, right? So all of us who are in this business live with the pain of different specs coming in. What are the files? What are the things that we need to deliver? They're changing. We get new ones all the time. What if Gen AI could read that spec and actually input that into our automation that we already have today, and sort of take humans and take that delay out of that loop? Or how can we build dynamic workflows so we don't have to constantly sort of create those? We have a great workflow editor that we've built on AWS called Ignition. It's a wonderful tool, but what if you never even have to open that tool up and the system itself would dynamically build its workflow for you? And we think there's some interesting things there on packaging and delivery. And then the last part is, again, the reason why most of us exist is trying to maximize revenue and monetize. And so this is starting to ask questions like, well, now that I know a lot about my inventory, what about the monetization? How do I create sort of the best basket of goods based on the inventory that I have? And then can I also look at social trends and put that together as well, right? So if I'm selling to a broadcaster in the UK who typically runs a certain demographic, what in my inventory would overlap well with what they're trying to program, and what assets do I already have in the languages that they need to service that quickly for a low-cost deal? And how can I act on that tomorrow? Right, so that's the nature of things, especially with fast. Those deals are coming rapidly, and if you can't ask and answer those questions quickly, you're missing out on opportunities to maximize. Also, with sort of the new economics, sort of post-pandemic, post-strike, the amount of new production is decreasing, and we're increasingly more reliant again on library and the long tail. Right, that kind of faded for a little while. Long tail is really important again. So maximizing what you have is an important priority for most businesses right now. So that's the sort of the four major concepts and the way that I've started to break down this overall supply chain problem into these core pillars. And this is what we use at Ateliere to guide our decision making and our road mapping around Gen AI. So where do you start? Always you start at the beginning. So tackling number one, in just an organization, we thought a lot about how would we deal with that, what are some of the core issues. So again, taking order to chaos, sort of some of the problems that you might tackle there. Again, ingesting this unstructured metadata, you've got different labels. Some people call it a container size, some people might call it an aspect ratio, 16x9 by 16:9, mapping all of that metadata intelligently without manually going through that. That's a great use case for Gen AI. But that's not what I'm going to show today. One of the fun things that we thought we would try to do is, what if I had just a bunch of files I didn't know what they were, and I could use Gen AI to tell me what the title was, what the language was, what kind of asset is that, right? So I don't have to manually open and check and validate those things one by one. I could get a confidence score out of Gen AI to tell me what it thought it was. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And I've kind of called this the sorting hat as a little tongue in cheek. So the idea is, what house am I? What asset am I? And the use case, again, I've got tons of assets. Maybe they're being migrated out of old systems, old file systems, not well organized. I'm not positive what they are. How can I use Gen AI to tell me about that? And I'm not talking about basic technical metadata all of us can run a probe against and get. Is what is the actual content? So again, the traditional problem here is around smart naming. I've got naming conventions that are not always followed. I've got meaningless file names that are just a bunch of strings of numbers. Maybe I've got bad metadata. So in the file name, it says it's Japanese. Oops, that was actually Korean. I've lived that. I'm sure others have lived that problem before. And so you can't rely on that metadata. You can't rely on that file name. So how can Gen AI rescue us from that? I'll do a couple of screenshots, and then the goal will be at the end, we'll just take you through the live app. So the idea here is, what if I can upload a bunch of file names, let Gen AI kind of run its little magic, and then give us a sense of confidence. What are the things I have a high confidence in? What are the things that I have a low confidence in? What is the title? What type of asset, right? Is this a subtitle? Is this an image? Is this a trailer? Is this a full-length feature video? What language am I hearing? What language am I reading on that asset? And then once I can do that, I can go to review and approve. Some things that are low confidence, I might want to take a quick look at in a preview player, and then say, yep, this is this asset. Go ahead and ingest it into my inventory and let Connect automate off of that. Right, so that's awesome. We're done. Go to the beach, relax. Right, that was days and days and months of process. Now we've got that down to a few hours. And so a quick interruption to talk about technology before I move to the other use case that we're thinking about. Sort of what are some of the fundamental tools that we think are really helpful to make this possible. One of those key things for us to do this, because we are a SaaS provider, we are multi-tenant, we have to worry about these types of things, is we need a solution like Bedrock to make that possible for a couple of main reasons. So this is key to our foundation, and part of that is around security. Your own model. Those of us who are familiar with Baskin-Robbins, you got your 31 flavors available to you. It's not quite 31, but you can have access to Claude from Anthropic, the various sort of meta models that are available there, Stable Diffusion. All of those are built into that framework, so you don't have to individually work through integrating those large language models. yourself. So it's kind of ready for you in the framework. That's a huge jump start for us as a development team. The other real benefit, again, this is cultural for those who remember the McDLT, but another really important part about Bedrock is it kind of segments two important things, right? So you can keep the hot side hot and the cold side cold, right? So Bedrock allows you to keep the public data completely segmented and separate from your public data, your private data, right? Those two things are completely coherent. So all the important information that you're leveraging out of the public models is critical. We don't have the compute power and the expertise to go build an entire LLM ourselves at scale, but we do want to enrich it. We do want to run RAG processes. We do want to leverage sort of our customer data if they need to train it specifically for their use cases. That has to be completely segmented for security and privacy reasons. And that's really what Bedrock allows you to do based on the framework. So for those of us who still remember McDLTs. All right, so that's use case number one. Again, leveraging Bedrock to kind of keep that private and do that investigation of the assets. So next one is about sending the goods, right? How are we delivering content? So here, again, we can think about new workflow automation, how we might do platform specifications automatically, reading those. We've chosen to do something that I've called this delivery conversations, right? So how people might talk about, hey, I need to go deliver these files. I need to deliver these packages based on this deal to this vendor, these languages, right? Instead of hunting and pecking through a UI, what if that could be a conversation that you're having with a system directly? So again, what are the types of things, what titles am I trying to send? What's workable? What assets are missing? Right? These are emails usually to different people, or again, people digging around systems to try to figure out what these questions are. A lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot of Slack messages, right? Trying to figure that out. It's really cumbersome, it's slow. Everyone's lived that. So the idea here is, again, what could we do in a delivery conversation? And it starts normal, right? You got a basic user interface. We're all painfully aware of that. But instead of going in now and doing a bunch of checkboxes and having to know a ton about my inventory as I build my delivery order, I instead can chat with a delivery assistant. We called him Dewey. Probably a better name out there eventually. You're interacting with your library and your card catalog. So Dewey Decimal is going to help you out there. So you could ask it a question like, hey, I want to deliver these files to, in this case, I think our mock-up was Netflix. It could come back to you and say, hey, that's a really great idea. What languages did you want to send? And by the way, you're missing a bunch of these assets. So these things you don't have, you need to go find and upload. Or maybe I have them, but you've not validated them yet. So you haven't completed that confidence process. But once you go through all of that and everything's done, then you can hit the button to deliver. And then maybe you want to deliver it someplace else. So maybe you want to say, hey, I just sent that package to Amazon Prime. I probably also want to send that to Hulu. And off you go, right? The bot's already aware of that. And then you can just rinse and repeat. The idea is, again, to kind of keep this simple and how this is a new paradigm. And this is our sort of first prototype out. But we think, again, this could be just a new way, a way more efficient way to deal with ordering. If you're going to be using a UI, many of our customers also tie in through our API directly. But if you're interacting with UIs, how do we completely change the game and make this simple and intuitive? All right. So let's do a quick demo. I'm going to show this live here. I'm going to hold my. So this is that UI that I showed you. This is uniquely difficult to do with a holding mic. Right. Right. Oh, I might have timed out. I'm not connected to the internet. All right. Sorry. All right. Nothing finer than live demos. All right. All right, there we go. Let's do that again. All right. So now we're just doing some small files just to keep this quick. The system's brought them in. goes through some initial processes, and then it goes ahead and runs the LLM against those files, right? So we've not given it any names, just JPEG files and some captions. It's already detected. You can see the title idea it has, the language that it thinks it is. It went ahead and went through that process. This one's sort of a high certainty. It's pretty confident where it is. These two are low, right? So I can then go and interact with that and say, is that what I think that is? There it is. Okay, yeah, that's actually, you got it right, but even though you weren't that confident, let's go ahead and save and approve that. Now I'm verified. I've got usable inventory after that process. And so that's that first concept. You can kind of see how that extends going forward. Next, we can talk about batch a little bit. All right, so I went ahead and asked Dewey to send Cowboys and Aliens and True Grit to Amazon. He said, great idea. There's the start of your batch, but what languages do you want to send it in? I'm lazy, so I'm just going to type the abbreviations. And it comes back and says, hey, you're missing some assets. Looks like I've got something to validate here. I've got something to upload. So we can go ahead and check that one really quick. Yep, that's a subtitle file. Sure enough, that's definitely Spanish. Just for sake of the demo, go ahead and approve that. Okay, do we give me an updated status report? Okay, that asset's good. And let's go back to the asset side. All right, rinse and repeat. So same concept here, right? I'm going to go ahead and upload those assets. It's going to go ahead and figure that what that is. And go ahead and check here. Hey, where are we on the status perspective? Yep. So I've uploaded that asset. It's good. Now I just got a couple of things I need to go in here and validate just for expedience. Yep, that's Cowboys and Aliens. Validate this one. Straight. Great. Nope. Of course. All right, Dewey. Okay, great. So now I've gone ahead and I've approved those assets. It knows it's done. Now I want to go ahead and deliver. Again, this has been just bridging to our native application. Connect. Go ahead and deliver here. Hopefully I haven't timed out security-wise. So just jump directly into the application. And there it is, sort of my delivery is ready to be packaged up and going. I didn't have to go through the application, didn't have to pick assets, didn't have to worry about that. It says it's ready, it's pending, and then connect, go from there. So you can leverage all the power of our platform, but much more simpler user experience to get there. All right, let's go back to our tech. So that's two use cases that we've already started in radically kind of changing the game, we think. It's still early days. We still think there's a lot of ideas we can continue to add, but we think this is sort of going to be a really new and interesting way to work with your supply chain. But that's the Gen AI side. AI still has a huge role to play. We still use that. We have some core and interesting technology around detecting duplicates within files and reducing the amount of data there. So we've seen reductions there. If you have heavy versions, to reduce 70 to 90% of your data and reduce the amount of assets that you're QCing. So in a heavily versioned library, again, we tend to see a significant reduction up to 92% in a real use case based on this data. So to kind of wrap things up, we're really excited about the future. We do think Gen AI has a lot of promise. We think it's also going to be a struggle. It's not going to be sort of all roses and sunshine. I think there's this process of sort of maturity and growth, and sort of different sort of patterns that we'll see over time But even from some of the initial prototypes and some of the products that we've already started to integrate with, that are sort of best of breed around localization today, we think there's tremendous promise for this technology to really drive massive efficiency into the supply chain. It's like I said, it's building blocks. We're not going to solve the problem overnight. We've broken down the problem into these segments, and we're going to iteratively chip away at these building blocks and then tie them together in workflows, as we talked about. It's a big lift. We know we'll get there. And we're partnering with key partners like AWS, leveraging some of those services like Bedrock that I mentioned to kind of really accelerate our path to growth. Just really quick on architecture, for those who wanted to see that bit, we use a lot of services to make this possible. Wherever possible, we stay serverless. Some things you can't, so we still leverage containers as needed in various tools. S3 is primary storage that we use, and of course, archive off to Glacier. Architecturally, again, this is sort of a big picture of our entire platform Connect, but in terms of an AI perspective, we're really leveraging tools like serverless, Lambdas, a bit of EKS at times, S3, and then Bedrock is a foundation element for us to make that possible. All right, and let's do this. I think, from our perspective, as we jumped into the water here, it's really rewarding to build these prototypes. So if you're a builder and you're out there kind of looking to get going on this, it's actually a lot of fun. If you're on the market on the buying side, let's talk about this because, again, we think this is really fun and a really cool set of technology to demo and to show. And we're actually right over there and down here in the Partner Village if you want to see a bit more about what we're doing. And we're online at Ateliere.com. Thank you, everybody, for your time.